Cruising through the last frontier is like the holy grail for a lot of people, and we're going to go through everything that you could possibly want to know about Alaska sailings on Disney Cruise Line and tell you what we wish we knew before we went on our first Alaska. I gotta take this coat off. It's 98 degrees outside. Okay.
Are you good now?
Yeah.
Are you ready to do the video?
Yeah, let's do it.
In early 2024, I saw a reel on Instagram about an Alaska cruise, and I immediately sent it over to Ben. And of course, we've always thought about going to Alaska would be really cool, but it was something that I figured we'd need to research a lot, like where to go, where to stay, places to visit, all that. Well, taking a cruise kind of takes all that, the guesswork out. Everything's provided and you can just hop on and off and sightsee. The top cruise lines that we were looking at were Norwegian, Royal, and Disney.
Yeah. And so I think a priority for us on this cruise was like, okay, we knew automatically we wanted a balcony because, we want to spend a lot of time as a family, and we have, young kids. We want to spend a lot of time together, make those memories while we still have them, with us. But
just because of the views, like in the reel that we saw, the views were like the whole time they were on the ship. And so I'm like, we have to have that balcony so that we can, have access to that the whole time.
Yeah, and you can totally go up on the top deck and, explore around up there, and you have, all the views there too. But there really is something to be said about hanging out on your own balcony and, hanging out as a family, just chilling out there. Also for the adults, just reading a book, relaxing. It's your vacation, so spending a lot of time on that balcony. Like, we knew that was going to be pretty important. So when we were doing our research, Norwegian, and we have a family of 5, so we have 3 kiddos. Norwegian, they have family suites or family rooms, but they only have a porthole window. They don't have a balcony.
So that kind of knocked Norwegian out of the running for us. So then that left Royal and Disney for us. So with Royal, it was about $5,000 less than Disney, but we'd already had experience with Disney Cruise Line, and we already knew that the kids love the kids club, but they love the activities and the shows and all that. Like, there's never any like dead time for us, and they're always wanting to go to the kids club. Versus on Royal Caribbean, in the past they've been great, but the kids don't necessarily. It's not as engaging for the kids club, and they're not open as much. So then it's like, what do we do to fill our time?
Yeah, and they have like the racetrack, they have arcade, they have a ton of games, like they have laser tag.
Right, but all those were extra costs too. Right. So we knew that our onboard expenses would be high as far as like entertainment and stuff for the kids. Yep. So. And
we were going to do like excursions or port adventures either way. Like, we wanted to do whale watching, we wanted to go do all these fun things, and like that was already kind of baked in. But by the time that you factor in all the extra costs with Royal or Norwegian, you kind of almost net out the same as being on a Disney cruise. Because even on Royal and Norwegian, like, there's a lot of extra, upcharge restaurants and things like that you're probably going to want to do. But on Disney, there's Palo, but all the meals are great on Disney.
Yeah.
Yep. So going to Alaska was going to be our 8th cruise, and we've had plenty of experience at this point as a family. We already know that we love cruising, obviously, and we've been on a ton of cruises since then. But the Disney Wonder is the Disney Cruise Line ship that goes to Alaska right now. But fun fact, the Magic is going to join the Wonder in Alaska, because Alaska sailings are pretty much sold out. Even we were on the second to last sailing in September.
It was full.
Yeah, it was a completely full ship. I mean, they maybe had a couple of staterooms left over, and that was it. So the Magic is going to join the Wonder in Alaska starting in 2026. So in this video, we want to show you both, because we've been on both ships. We do want to show you what the Magic will look like, because for some people, Alaska may be your first and only cruise, because it is expensive. And so some people may, it's a bucket list trip. So a lot of people may just go on the trip on an Alaska cruise one time, and that's it. So we're going to show you the Magic and the Wonder, so you can get both ships and see what it's like. They are older.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're a couple decades older.
They would not be our choice to do like a Caribbean cruise, because like for example, the pool area, it's not much.
Yeah. It's definitely different than the Wish or some of the newer ships.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room, and there's not a lot of features to it, and so in the summertime, we have done it in the summertime, and it was just very crowded. We didn't enjoy the like pool area. But for Alaska, where it's cold and not everybody's swimming, I mean, we had plenty of space. It was perfect for this trip.
Yeah, don't worry. We still got in the pool and the splash pad while we were
They
in Alaska.
did. They did.
We did it, the kids. And by the way, so like after you like and subscribe to our channel, definitely helps us out a lot. What keeps us going here. You're gonna find a link in the description below that has our Alaska cruising guide. So if you fill out that link with your email and your name, I'll personally send you our own Fanvia travel guide to cruising in Alaska with Disney Cruise Line. I'm also going to send you a couple of extra tips that we're not going to talk about in this video here, but you do have to fill out that form with your email. We won't spam you, I promise, but we do want to send you that guide and a couple of extra tips from us all about cruising in Alaska with Disney Cruise Line. So let's dive in. Our goal here is for you to feel as prepared as possible before you even step foot in Vancouver. So here are the 5 areas that we wish we knew more about as a family before we went to Alaska. The first is beginning your journey in Vancouver because it's a very different experience than what you would see in Port Canaveral or Port Everglades. Then we're going to talk about how to decide on your stateroom because the room definitely impacts the sailing versus any other itinerary. Taking a Disney cruise means a ton of food, and don't worry, we've got lots of info here for you. And number 4, of course, a Disney cruise is always jam-packed with tons of fun stuff, and we have a lot of highlights just for Alaska itineraries. And the 5th one, well, this is the one trip that you absolutely need to budget extra for, so that way you can include port adventures. So our family's going to tell you what our favorites were from this trip, and these are the ones that we're still talking about even today. Then we're going to wrap up with some practical tips, costs, packing lists, all that kind of fun stuff.
You will hear the cruise director call this a bucket list trip every time he or she comes over the PA or when talking to you on stage at the shows, and it's definitely true that a cruise to Alaska deserves a spot on everyone's list as something to do with their family, especially if you love Disney Cruise Line or just cruising in general.
Disney's Alaskan itineraries currently depart from Port Vancouver in Canada. So the number one question you're probably thinking right now is, okay, so do I need a passport to go on this trip? And the answer is, well, it depends on the age for US citizens. So if you're flying to Vancouver, everyone in your party must have a passport regardless of age. But let's say that if you're flying to Seattle and you're taking the boat across, or maybe taking the train, or you're going to drive a personal vehicle from the States to Vancouver, then you do need to have a passport if you are 16 or older. It's important to note though that if you turn 16 at any point during the sailing, you do have to have a passport. If someone in your party is 15 years of age or younger, then you can use a passport or a government issued birth certificate if you're coming in by land or sea, but you have to be 15 or less throughout the entire sailing.
For Canadian citizens and citizens of other countries, there are visa and entry requirements you'll need to consider, and we cover this in depth in our Alaska guide. We flew into Vancouver and the customs and immigration flow didn't take a super long time, but from talking with other passengers, the queues at customs in Canada can be up to an hour to get through. Getting to the port, you'll have a couple of options. There's obviously Uber or taxis, but if you have a lot of luggage, you may be forced to take a couple of taxis, which depending on hotel can be pretty expensive. Most people end up on the SkyTrain, which is about $4.65 for an adult right now. Kids 12 and under, they ride this for free.
So this might be where we made a mistake as a family heading to Port Vancouver.
Why do you feel like it's a mistake?
Because we had to walk up all of those hills with 14 suitcases and 3 littles at midnight.
So for our family, it was a mistake because we have 3 little ones who cannot carry their own luggage or their bags or anything. So, but for other people, for adults, I think it'd be fine. Yeah, so
you could stay close to the airport at like one of the hotels there and then hop on a taxi or take the SkyTrain the next morning. But we had
too much luggage for that though.
Yeah.
We couldn't doing an Uber, we would have had to take several. So
yep. But I would definitely say stay as close to the port as you can, and you can actually take the SkyTrain all the way to a hotel that's right above the port, where they handle your luggage for you and all that stuff. Yeah, but I would not try to fly in the day of a cruise.
Never.
To Port, not to Port Vancouver. That would not be great.
And we don't suggest that for any cruise, but especially not the Alaskan cruise. But for any cruise, we always recommend getting in a day before, days before, never the day of.
So in the Seattle area, Vancouver area, there's a ton of fog possible with all the rain, crazy weather. I would totally not try and fly in the day of, because if you're trying to fly in the day before, something crazy happens, well, you can try and get to Seattle and then take the train across or rent a car and get across to your cruise. Alaska cruises are not cheap, and you definitely don't want to put yourself at jeopardy of not being able to go. Actually, when we were in Vancouver the night before our cruise, I had a nightmare that we were not at the port at the right time and we were just going to be standing there waving. Yeah, so don't put yourself through that stress. It's not great.
No,
so,
not. Yeah. But I do want to backtrack and talk about the train. It is actually very, very simple to manage. And like he said, you can get from the airport all the way to right at the port pretty easily. With all your luggage and everything.
Yeah, but the train does make a lot of stops along the downtown corridor, and so if you want to stay at a Marriott or Holiday Inn type hotel, those options are there. But once you get out, you do have to walk up and down a lot of hills, and we got there late at night with 3 kids. Yeah, we won't make that mistake again. And just like a cruise out of Florida, when you check in, you're also going to select a port arrival time, and you'll have that port arrival time here in Vancouver. We got to the check-in counter over 2 hours after our port arrival time. It seriously took so long inside the queue. It was pretty bonkers, and it's like such a different experience than what we've seen traditionally in Port Canaveral or Port Everglades. So definitely don't be alarmed if you show up and there's a really long queue. You just got to deal with it in order to get on the ship, especially with those mid-morning port arrival times. You might want to bring some snacks. And by the way, this was just our experience. Some guests may show up and you may breeze right from security to the counter in 30 minutes or less. But I would rather mention it in this video so that way you and your family are prepped and ready.
However, once you're on board, then you get to hear those magical words.
To the order from over the Anson Valley.
Now that you're on board, it's time to relax and head straight to a sit-down lunch. If you're in a non-concierge stateroom on the Wonder, you'll go to Tiana's place. Or if you're in Alaska on the Magic, you'll head to Rapunzel's Royal Table. If you're sailing in a concierge stateroom, you can go to Triton's on the Magic and Lumiere's on the Wonder. By the time we boarded and had lunch, our stateroom was ready, and that brings us to our next section. Which room category should I choose?
More than on any other sailing on Disney Cruise Line, your stateroom when you're going to Alaska is probably going to make a big difference. And we've talked through our thought process a few times already in this video, and we'll keep mentioning it a couple other times because it really does play an interesting part into how you're going to do Alaska. So for instance, if you're sailing in an inside stateroom, well, you probably aren't going to spend a lot of time there. But if you're on a balcony stateroom, you could be taking in Dawe's Glacier while the ship is spinning around 360 degrees, sipping some hot chocolate or taking a drink from Cove Cafe out there, hanging out on your own balcony. So like your stateroom really does matter. And we're going to show you 2 different perspectives on that because both the Magic and the Wonder are going to be sailing to Alaska soon. And so for example, we're going to show you an inside stateroom on the Disney Magic, and we'll show you a Deluxe Family Oceanview stateroom with Verandah on the Wonder. Yeah, they're sister ships, and they've been around a long time, and they're pretty much laid out the exact same. A bed may be turned one way or another. There's going to be different artwork on the walls. But because both ships are going to be going to Alaska, we're going to give you 2 different perspectives. And so you can make your own judgment call on like if you want to invest that amount of money into a balcony room and just hang out on your balcony taking in the sights, or if you want to do an inside stateroom and you just plan to be on the top side as much as you can. But we're going to let you make that call. And right now we're going to dive into an inside stateroom on the Disney Magic.
For sure, an inside room is going to be a lot less than a stateroom with a balcony or what Disney Cruise Line calls a veranda. As you can imagine, with an inside stateroom, you probably aren't going to be spending a ton of time in your room, but you can take the money that you save and spend that on port adventures. You'll do most of your sightseeing from the ship up on decks 9 and 10. But if you have a veranda room, your cruise experience can be pretty different from an inside room. And here's what a deluxe Oceanview family stateroom with veranda looks like on the Disney Wonder.
So there's really no right or wrong way to do Alaska, just so long as you're there and you're experiencing all the cool stuff that an Alaska itinerary can bring you. Now, I will say for our family, we really enjoyed having that balcony, and we'll talk about that again a couple other times throughout this video, and like what that did for us with the onboard activities and why it kind of is a port adventure in and of itself. But you know, the inside stateroom, it's a great stateroom, not necessarily large enough for a family of 5, but a deluxe family Oceanview stateroom, whether you have that balcony or if you just have an Oceanview stateroom, it can totally work for your family. You can spend a lot of time in the room. You can also spend a lot of time up on deck, 9 and 10. You can hang out there as a family. There are so many things for you to do on board the ship that you probably won't end up spending a ton of time unless you have that balcony. Now for us, from our experience, that was something that we really enjoyed. We made a lot of memories out there. We loved having that balcony as a family, and we would probably do that again. But I can make a really good case for not doing it and saving that money and doing something else with those funds later, whether it's a really cool port adventure that maybe we couldn't do because we spent a lot of money on that balcony. But the choice is yours, just as long as you go to Alaska.
As we move on to dining in Alaska, I do want to call out that the only way any of this is possible is because of y'all. Our family has invested a ton of time and resources into building our travel company here at Van Via Travel. And we did that because we want to make sure families everywhere have the opportunity to enjoy experiences like this. So if you want to head to Alaska on a Disney cruise line or any other cruise line, there's a link in the video description which will take you to a form, and you can select the ship and date you want to go to Alaska. And someone from our team will give you a free quote of what it would cost for you to go to Alaska with your family or friends. Or, as we've booked a ton lately, Generational Cruise. We will take great care of you, and it never costs you anything. Disney pays us from their marketing budget to take care of all of our guests. Plus, when you book with us, you get access to all of our planning content and our industry-leading travel rewards, which means more money in your onboard credit account for port adventures and other things. So please reach out if you are thinking about going to Alaska on Disney or any other cruise line. On the flip side, if you think all of this looks insanely cool, there's a special link below to join our team as a travel agent. Either way, thank you all for supporting our channel by subscribing, and let's dive into some delicious food.
Part of going on a Disney cruise is getting insanely cool dining experiences, and that means it's time to talk rotational dining. While many cruise lines may assign you a table at a main dining restaurant, which has a semi-different menu each night, and your waitstaff may change or may not, Disney Cruise Line uses rotational dining, and the basic concept goes like this. Instead of eating at the same restaurant every night, you're going to actually rotate between 3 different themed restaurants, but here's the magical part. Your serving team is actually going to move with you each night to each restaurant.
Each ship has 3 unique restaurants. One that's usually animation themed. The Magic and Wonder both have Animator's Palette. One that's more elegant. On the Magic, that would be Lumiere's, and on the Wonder, Triton's. And one that's unique to the ship. On the Wonder, this is Tiana's Place, and on the Magic, it's Rapunzel's Royal Table.
Your specific rotation can be found in the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app, and whether it's a 5, 7, 8, or 9-night cruise in Alaska, you will still rotate through each restaurant a few times. This is one of Disney Cruise Line's most unique and most beloved features, and we talk extensively about it in our 40 Things to Know About Disney Cruise Line video.
Even though you will visit each restaurant multiple times, the menus will change every night, so don't worry, you won't be stuck eating the same thing over and over at night. The serving team can really be a huge benefit to your cruise, and our kiddos can still tell you the names of several servers on different sailings where they went above and beyond with magic tricks or funny drawings and stuff like that.
If you've been around the channel a while, you know that we love to show you every single dish at each restaurant, but that would mean a 2.5-hour video here, so we have a separate dedicated video all about the food that you can expect to find on an Alaska sailing, whether it's the Disney Magic or the Disney Wonder.
But there are some special meals to plan for, and a lot of people ask about formal nights in Alaska. Disney does formal nights differently than other cruise lines. They're called optional dress-up nights for a reason. Disney keeps this to more of a relaxed guideline than a requirement, and it's totally optional to dress up or remain in what's called cruise casual attire each night of the cruise.
On a 7-night cruise to Alaska, there's going to be 1 formal and 1 semi-formal night on board. We've seen everything from full tuxedos and ball gowns to khakis and polos, and guess what? Everyone fits in just fine. This does bring up an important point, and that's the dinner seating times, because Alaska itineraries usually are going to mean that you're off the ship exploring a port and you may not end up back on board until later in the day. So let's say that the all aboard time is 5:45 p.m. and you're on the first seating at 5:45. Well, it may not make sense for you to go all out on formal night if you're racing back to the ship and then stepping on board at 4:30 and then you have dinner an hour later. It's just something to keep in mind that your dinner seating does matter quite a bit more on the Alaska itineraries than it does on others. On Disney Cruise Line, there are 2 seatings for dinner. There's a 5:45 and an 8:15, and there are pros and cons for both. So for the 5:45, it can definitely be better for younger kids, like with our littles, trying to keep them up till 8, like that was a no-go.
Yeah. On our first Disney cruise, we had 2 little ones. One was under the age of 1, I believe.
Yep.
The other one was 3-ish. And we got the late seating, and it was rough. We did not like it at all.
Yeah, so you're definitely on the struggle bus if you have the 8:15 and young kids. Also, if you're coming in from the East Coast to the West Coast, if you're trying to eat at 8:15,
or some of the international guests.
Yeah, so the 5:45 is great. There's a lot of pros to that, but there are some cons too. Like you could be rushing back from port to try and get ready for dinner. It's usually a busier, more hectic atmosphere because there is a second seating that they have to get everybody in, fed, and get them out to turn over the restaurant. But our family, now we kind of like to do the late seating if we can.
We've switched over because our kids are a lot older. They stay up later. They can hang in there for all the different things. So when they were really young, we did not want that late dinner. And now that they're older, we actually really enjoy and prefer it.
Yeah, but it is a much more relaxed pace at dinner because they've already done the first seating. The serving team's pretty chill. And that's not to say that you're not going to have a good experience in the first seating. I mean, of course, the serving teams can take great care of you. But there is a more relaxed, like more comfortable atmosphere in that second seating. And if you have a ton of port activities during the day, you can get back on the ship, get ready. There are shows. So whether you're at the 5:45 or the 8:15, you can hit the show that night. It's just the opposite. So if you're at 5:45 dinner seating, then you're going to go to the show after dinner. If you're at the 8:15 seating for dinner, you're going to go to the first show of the night. But really, I think it's the big cons of the 8:15. Like if you have little kids, don't do that. If you're coming in international or on the East Coast, that time's not going to work for you. If you're torn between which dining time to pick, I would suggest late dining because you can always grab a snack, and we personally enjoy the early shows. But obviously, if you're coming in from the East Coast, then that means that you're eating dinner at 11:15 p.m. If you want to request a table by yourself or you have a special request like sitting near a screen at Animator's Palette, the second seating also gives you the best opportunity to have that request granted. You can totally ask for a private table or make some other special request during the first seating, but in our experience, we've never not had a request granted in that second seating, while the first seating has been hit or miss on those special requests.
When sailing to Alaska, there are 2 really fun nights that we didn't know a lot about before going to Alaska, and we wish that we would have. If you have an Elsa or Anna fan, then heads up that there's a special menu for the Freezing the Night Away party on the first Glacier day. If you've been on the Wish, the menu is pretty similar to Arendelle.
The next big night to call out is the Captain's Gala, which is where you'll find fresh lobster prepared tableside. And of course, there is the most asked about dessert for any Alaska sailing, and that is the Baked Alaska Night. And let me tell you, it's as good as you can imagine. You will definitely want to order 2 per person. And don't worry, once again, we will show you every dish that you can expect on a 7-night sailing, whether you're on the Magic or Wonder, in our next video all about the food in Alaska. Just like with any other Disney cruise, you can expect that there's a great buffet for breakfast and lunch, and on the Wonder and Magic, that's called Cabanas. It's open very early for breakfast, so if you're up for whale watching, go grab some food and sit on the outdoor deck waiting for that whale to breach.
And of course, there's great quick service options like Pete's Broiler Bites on the Wonder with shawarma and hot dogs and burgers, Pinocchio's Pizzeria, which is open super late with great pizza, and there's even Daisy's Delights, which has custom rice bowls or soups that you can garnish how you like. One thing we love to do is grab some hot chocolate, piping hot fries, and just chill out while watching the glaciers. Or if you're crazy pants like our kids and Ben, then you'll go jump in the pool while I sit and enjoy that hot chocolate. Which brings us to some of the activities you can look forward to on an Alaskan cruise.
There's a reason that families choose to do Alaska on Disney Cruise Line, and the amount of things that you can do on board as a family are night and day difference between other cruise lines. So if you have little ones in your family up to the teens, well, this section is definitely for you because we're going to cover a few topics rapid fire, all about stuff that you can do as a family. So to get started, we're going to bring in our experts on the Oceaneers Club and the Oceaneers Lab to give their favorite things to do and why they love to hang out there. The club and the lab are pretty much identical between both the Magic and the Wonder, and there's even a secret secure passageway for kids to get from one side to the other. Our kids have so much fun here, and it's one of the top selling points for Disney cruises in general. Our kiddos ask to go here from the moment they wake up until just before their eyes close at night. All right, buddy, why do you like the kids club so much?
Because it has games and iPads and slide. I like the Kids Club because they make a lot of crafts and I make a lot of friends and bracelets. I love the Oceaneer Club and Oceaneer Lab because they have Gaga Ball and other things like iPads. I can make new friends. Sometimes I'll go to the craft studio and trace like on the papers, and also they have like Mario Kart and all these other like things, like there's a tunnel to go to from the club to the lab. They also have a Marvel Academy, which is pretty fun. They have a video game there where you train up to become an Avenger.
There are so many opportunities to meet Disney characters. You can find all the meet and greet times in the app. Ben and I wanted to be sure to get pictures with Mickey and Minnie in their special Alaska outfits. The boys really wanted pictures with the Marvel characters, and our daughter had a special request to meet Tiana. On Glacier Day is when Mickey and friends wore their special outfits, and the lines were pretty long for that. We signed up in the app for the Royal Gathering, which is no extra cost, but it is a great way to meet all the princesses. You can't just get in line for this. Each person must have a reservation. We planned a fun morning for our kids on this day. We ordered room service for breakfast and then did a DIY Bibbidi Bobbidi boutique in our room. I secretly ordered some costumes on Amazon along with some boutique accessories like glitter nail polish and hair chalk. I also got each kid a small toy. Y'all, I spent less than $100 for all 3 kids to have a boutique makeover, and we had so much fun. With Alaska being a pricier cruise and us wanting to do excursions, booking Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique wasn't even something I considered. So then we went to meet the princesses, and it just so happened that the Marvel characters were out as well near the Walt Disney Theater, so that really was just a perfect morning for us.
The shows on board any Disney cruise are lights out, and no matter how many times we've seen the same show, our family loves all of them. On board the ship, you'll be able to experience a few shows throughout the cruise, and we talk about these quite a bit in our 40 questions video, and that's highlighted right here. There's also a movie theater on board, and being able to watch brand new release movies while on board and then heading to a Broadway show is pretty sweet. Seriously, we actually watched Elemental and Moana 2 while on board a Disney ship, even though they were still in theaters. Every night for a couple hours, there's actually a rotating happy hour that's going to jump between the 3 bars and lounges in the after hours area. The after hours area is the same location on both the Magic and the Wonder. At night, for about 45 minutes or so, there's a Small Bites mini buffet available too, and that's over in the pub, and that has like chicken wings, mini finger sandwiches, crudités, stuff like that. But the nighttime entertainment for adults is really relaxing. We can easily drop the kids off for a couple hours while we hang out, play some board games, grab a drink, hit the buffet, really just relax and wind down after a really long day of doing port adventures.
Yep, it was 50 degrees outside and the kids were still in the pool with their father. The weather in Alaska changes pretty dramatically from July to September. In the beginning of the sailing season in Alaska, everyone will be in the pool, while at the end, only the crazies will be in there. But the slides and splash pad area are so much fun for everyone, no matter what the weather is like. But let me tell you, those hot tubs got some serious use for sure. This was so fun that when we'd climb back on board after a long hard day of port adventures, a cast member would be standing there with some welcome home hot chocolate. The amount of hot chocolate and ice cream that our daughter consumed on this cruise was insane.
And of course, a Disney cruise could not start without an epic sail-away party, so here's a glimpse of what that looks like as you leave Vancouver behind.
And
When it comes to port adventures, there's a ton of stuff for you to do in the last frontier, and I definitely recommend saving some extra budget just so you can go on these amazing port adventures. There's an excursion for everything and everybody, so whether you're young or old, whale watching, you want to go on a pub crawl, there's something that you can do no matter which port you're in, which day you're in. There's going to be something that will pique your interest. Now, we may not necessarily recommend doing every port adventure on a Caribbean cruise, but in Alaska, I can highly recommend that you try and get off the ship at least once in every port, even if it's just go look around, but do some paid for port adventures, whale watching, railway. We're going to mention some of our favorites here in this video, some of the things that our family really enjoyed, and we have 3 kids, so this is stuff that our family would totally do again and again every single time that we go to Alaska. So when it comes to port adventures at night, you're going to get a note on your pillow the night before, and it'll tell you what time you're supposed to meet, where you're supposed to meet, if you're supposed to go to a certain point on the ship, or if you're going to debark and then somebody will meet you at the port. All that's going to be spelled out on the letter. So let's dive into some of our favorite things that we loved as a family on our Alaska itinerary.
For Dawe's Glacier, we did not book an excursion. We chose to just enjoy it from the boat. Going to and from the glacier is incredible. We just stood in awe most of the time, and once the boat gets as close as it can, it stops and slowly does a 360 rotation to really take it all in from all points on the boat. We started viewing on deck 4 to avoid the top deck crowds, and this was a great decision. We eventually went up to the top decks, and then we just ended up in our room. I feel like this was a very poignant moment that really tipped the scales into this being our favorite cruise. It was such an incredible experience.
We would highly recommend doing the White Pass Railway. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's something that we still talk about often. Prior to getting off the boat, you're going to meet in the common area, and there's cast members there, and they'll assign you a group such as Goofy, Mickey, Pluto. They'll give you a sticker to wear, and that matches your assigned group. Then you just follow your group off the boat directly to the train. The train is continuously running with no stops, and it goes up the mountain and comes back down. You're free to get up and move around, and honestly, that's what makes this even more awesome, because you're able to go stand outside on the platform, whether it's raining or not. Just get up and go do it. The views are spectacular, and the experience is one of a kind. It's something that we absolutely loved. Serious core memories were made on this trip. Now, it is 3 hours long, so timing of food is pretty key, especially with the little ones. I would recommend doing the early or late departure so you don't miss lunch, but once on board, there are water bottles provided.
We were pretty hungry when we got off, so we stopped and got some fry bread before walking around and doing some shopping. This is another thing that we would definitely recommend. Even if you're not planning an excursion in Skagway, just hop off the boat and walk around and try it. It's a cinnamon sugar fried bread. Our family devoured it. That could have been because we were very hungry after the train ride, but it really was delicious. Skagway is a cute little touristy town, and it's comfortable to just walk around and have some time off the boat.
For our day in Juneau, again, we were directed right to a bus, and that was our transportation for the day, because we went to 3 different things. We went to Mendenhall Glacier, we went to whale watching out on the ocean, a little excursion there, and then we went to a salmon bake. Now, the salmon bake was our final stop. The bus took us to each of those different things, and then it dropped us off at the salmon bake. Once you're at the salmon bake, you can, explore at your own leisure. You can hang out as long as you want to, eat all the good food that you want to, and then they have a bus or a van that will take you directly to the port. There's 2 stops in Juneau, and so the salmon bake transportation that they already have, it'll drop you off at both of those ports. Now, it's already included. You don't have to pay extra for it. That bus that takes you to Mendenhall Glacier, then Mendenhall Glacier to whale watching, then whale watching to the salmon bake. It's all part of the same deal. You don't have to pay extra for the transportation from salmon bake back to the port. They will ask you, and they'll talk a lot about their gratuities, that that's how they make their living. Of course, you're paying for that port adventure. Now, gratuities are on top of that, and it's totally up to you. You'll never be made to feel bad if you don't tip or provide some extra gratuity to bus drivers or the naturalist or the captain on board whale watching. It is customary to give $5-10 per person in your party, but again, it's optional. You don't have to do it. But for us, our day in Juneau was awesome.
This part of the day really rained on us a lot. That's why packing the right gear really matters on this trip. We were able to hike up and around and walk down to find a really good viewing spot of the glacier, and it is loud even from far away. And then we went back up to the center, and while it was crowded, there were some really neat learning spots for the kids.
After the cruise, our family voted on what was our favorite activity that we did, and all of the kids voted hands down going whale watching was their favorite. Obviously, the captain can't guarantee that you'll see any whales. However, our guides were awesome. They were searching and hunting for those opportunities for us constantly. We were actually pretty fortunate on our trip because we had a lot of whale sightings. We even got to see a shore full of harbor seals sunbathing. You're also free to get up and walk to the back deck, and everyone's really excited, working together to announce any sightings. Hey, off the starboard side, there's probably a whale at 3 o'clock. The kids were also really engaged and excited. We learned a lot about the whales. We learned about how naturalists study them and keep track of them. 10 out of 10. We love this excursion, and we would definitely recommend it for you and your family.
After our whale watching experience, we got back on the boat and rode to the salmon bake. This is outdoor eating in such a beautiful environment. It's all you can eat salmon and sides under a canopy of trees. And we did enjoy it. However, I'm thinking we'd probably skip it next time.
We didn't book any excursions in Ketchikan, and that's partly because of the time that we were sailing. In late September, the salmon aren't really running, and that's kind of what Ketchikan is known for. If you want to see the salmon run, you're probably going to want a earlier Alaska season booking. But, it's a great place to get off and shop as a family. Getting off the boat with everybody is super easy, by the way. You just need your key to the world card, and if you're an adult, you need a form of identification. Once you're off the boat, just do what we did, hang out, walk around with the family, see all the different shops. It's really pretty. It's a great town to just get off, relax for a little bit, and then get back on and go do more stuff on the boat.
Let's talk about getting a room with a balcony, because in Alaska, this is like a port adventure by itself, and it's included in your room. Our family felt like for this itinerary, it was a must. We spent a lot of time on our balcony taking in the beautiful views. We brought binoculars and the kids would stand outside seeing if they could spot anything in the water or on land. We couldn't help but take so many videos and photos of the views from our room. A lot of times we grabbed some pizza or a snack and hot chocolate and bring it back to the room to enjoy on the balcony. Again, this was our family's personal preference, and we talked to others that purposefully got an inside stateroom because they knew they wouldn't spend any time in their room, and they were fine with only seeing the views from the top decks. But for our family, this was a must.
The time of year that you go to Alaska can impact the experience a little bit. You can definitely expect some wind and rain no matter which month you're sailing. July does tend to see more rain than May or September, while September runs colder than July. But at the end of the day, there's really not a bad time to go to Alaska. Some port adventures may be better later on, while some are better earlier on. If you want to do whale watching later on, you may have a better chance of seeing a whale, but if you want a guaranteed look at the salmon run, you may want to go earlier. During those summer months, there will definitely be more kiddos on board, and that means that the pool areas can be a little bit more crowded on the warmer days because the Magic and Wonder don't have a ton of space dedicated to pools and splash pads or slides, but what they do have is great when it's not overly crowded.
I will admit that packing for Alaska was a bit intimidating, and it's hard to resist the urge to pack too much. I would just recommend layers. For the kids, they pretty much had pants and long sleeve shirts, and we had some hoodies and sweatshirts. Then each kid had a waterproof jacket and beanies and gloves. I didn't buy the waterproof shoes for each kid. We just brought their regular tennis shoes and some Crocs. And the same was for us. We brought pants and long sleeve tops, a waterproof jacket each, and a couple of sweaters and sweatshirts. And that's pretty much what we wore during the day. I always pack a nicer dress and clothes for the formal night, and we bring a couple of costumes for the kids. I would recommend getting some magnetic wall hooks. They were great to hang our jackets on so we could easily access them and they were not in the way. We did end up swimming a lot more than I thought we would. Well, the kids did. I refused to even attempt with those temperatures. But the kids really loved it, especially being in the hot tub, so I would pack a warmer cover-up for to and from the pool. Another thing that we always do is laundry, and on a 7-night sailing with a family of 5, this helps cut down on packing too much. The app will even notify you once your washer and dryer is finished, since you'll use your Key to the World card and it automatically charges your stateroom. So let's talk costs. The Alaskan cruise is not the cheapest cruise that you can go on.
Definitely not, because Disney does use what's called variable pricing. As we get closer to a sailing, the prices of all staterooms are going to go up, and as a stateroom category fills up, the remaining staterooms in that category are going to go up. So booking early and putting that deposit down as early as you can, that's the best way to save money just right off the bat. We're looking at 2025 sailings right now for people. and an inside stateroom could be $7,500 up to $8,500. If we're booking for 2026 over a year out, that same stateroom could be $1,000 less just for an inside. When we look at the Verandah staterooms, the price is $2,000, sometimes even $3,000 different over a year out. So booking as early as you can is the best way to save money. And then there's port adventures. So when you're thinking about port adventures, like you have to think about, what does the family want to do? Like what do you most value doing on this cruise? Like,
and also too, you have to look at like the age of your family as well, because a lot of times the age of the youngest member can exclude you from some things. Now I will say Alaska is really great for the whole family. Like talking about Caribbean cruises, there's a lot of stuff that like starts at age 7, 8, 9, like so our little ones can't go on it, versus the Alaska cruise is kind of open to, a lot of the excursions are open to the whole family, so that's really nice.
Yeah, and Disney does offer some really great promotions. Now they don't offer a ton of discounts unless you're military or Florida, but Florida doesn't apply to Alaska. But often Disney does offer 50% off deposits, and so that's a great way to save money. And you're still gonna have to pay the full amount later on, but you can save a little bit of money up front and then start planning for those port adventures. Port adventures are super critical to any Alaska sailing, and it's definitely something that you should start saving for. But you can be really picky and choosy because you're going to a lot of different ports, and you don't have to do a port adventure at every single port. You can say like, okay, this is our big day, and we're going to go all out on this day or that day.
Mm-hmm. But like Ben said, you do definitely want to do the excursions. Like for our Caribbean cruises, a lot of times we opt out. We don't really sign up for the excursions and stuff. But for Alaska, I feel like it's almost essential to seeing it all and experiencing it.
Yeah, and so one final plug for us here at Van Via Travel. So one of the things that we do for all of our guests that we're booking, we always check and see every Monday when a lot of cruise lines update their pricing in like as a whole, is to look and see, do we have the best price for our guests? And so whether you book right now or you book in 6 months from now, we always go back and check to make sure, like, is there any retroactive pricing or any kind of discounts that we can add in after the fact? Then that's not to mention the travel rewards that we offer here at Van Via Travel, because that's a really big deal. And being able to book a cruise with us, we take care of everything, and then we're able to pass along some of those savings over to you. And we throw some money on your onboard stateroom account, and you can use that for port adventures. You can use it for anything on board. So that's a great tip too for folks that are pretty budget conscious. Book early. Make sure that you're saving for port adventures, and then use somebody like us here at Van Via Travel so we can make sure that you maximize your onboard stateroom credit.
I highly recommend joining the Facebook group for your sailing dates. I always join, and they've been very helpful with planning and tips and tricks. We all usually have the same questions and concerns, issues, so it's great to bounce off each other. People will also plan meetups and events through the Facebook group as well. Also, if you're looking to participate in gift exchanges, pixie dusting, and fish extenders, this is where you would sign up. We've never signed up in the group for these things, but we always hang a fish extender with stickers to take freely. And we always make up small goodie bags to walk around the different decks and pixie dust other hanging fish extenders. This is also a fun way to get the kids involved in kindness and to see all the awesome door decorations. We put our room number on our bags, and people are the sweetest and usually pixie dust us in return.
While we don't normally recommend to our guests to do the unlimited photo pass on Caribbean sailings, you definitely 100% want to add this to your Alaska cruise. It's much cheaper to purchase it ahead of time, but trust us, there are so many unique photo opportunities on board. There's tons of characters, the sights, there's always cast members around, and while cast members are always willing to take a picture with your phone, you're on vacation, so let the pros handle it and get the photo pass. It will be the best money spent on the vacation.
Whether it's our friends or family or other travel agents that work on our team here at Van Via, everyone always asks this question: would you go to Alaska again?
So it's definitely not a question of if, it's definitely a when.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, like, as you've been able to watch this video, you've seen all the cool stuff that we've been able to do, and there's no way that we could do like a top 5 highlights. And we really wanted to try and give you as much information as possible, because there's a lot of stuff in this video that we had no clue on, and we watched a lot of stuff before we went. So these are a lot of things that we wish that we would have known before we went to Alaska ourselves. And you can't boil down a 7-week cruise, and it's our favorite cruise by far. Like, there's no way you can boil it down into like our favorite top 5 memories. There's so many cool things that we did on this trip that we'll cherish for a lifetime.
We literally, while we were on the boat, we were already thinking about when we could come back.
Yep. Now, I will say this. Next time I'm bringing a case of Celsius so we can stay up until 3 a.m. to probably
See
maybe...
the northern lights.
Yes, we definitely want to get a glimpse of that, because some people said they saw it. I don't believe it.
Several people in the Facebook group, our like Facebook sailing group, saw it and they posted pictures. But for us, we were like wiped out at the end of the night, and even the nights that we tried to set an alarm and like stay up and watch it, like we were out. So we did miss it.
Yeah. Well, there's always next time that we're in Alaska. And so with that, we are going to now show you some of our favorite footage from our balcony, and we can't wait to see you in Alaska. Let us know how we can help you get there. And so enjoy this footage from our balcony.